And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen. Story number 1. I've promised myself never to attend a bachelor's party again, and trust me, guys, I have my valid reasons. The last bachelor's party I attended ended up in me sleeping with an athlete and cheating on my husband. I messed up big time, and I can only hope that things don't end up getting worse than it already is. I've always been told that bachelor parties are wild and unpredictable, but I never imagined being at the receiving end of the wild activities. I never even imagined participating in any of the wild activities at all. That's why it breaks my heart to realize that I let my guard down, and now I've done something despicable. I'm very scared, guys. I'm so scared that I do not know what to do. I'm scared that my husband would find out, and then I'll be done for. I just know that he will never let this go or forgive me. There's no chance that the man I married will just overlook everything that happened that night. I'm scared, and I have many reasons to be scared. My name is Elena, and I'm a 31-year-old dancer and choreographer. I've been a choreographer for almost 10 years of my life. It's something that I fell in love with at a very young age. I'm married to a journalist, and I'll not be revealing his real name because I want to keep his identity private. I will just refer to my husband as Dane. He's 32 years old and he has an obsession for journalism. A dancer and a journalist. I know some of you might wonder how such an odd match ever came to be. To be honest, sometimes I also wonder how we managed to get married despite our weird professional comparisons. Dane and I have been married for 3 years now. We do not have children yet because we're always traveling for one thing or another. We decided not to have kids until we're perfectly sure that we would have enough time to raise them properly. I travel a lot because of my job as a dancer and choreographer, and that's how I ended up traveling to Chicago for a wedding. It's a client's wedding, and I literally didn't know anyone there except the client, who had been an old friend of mine. It's that particular wedding that led me to be in this narrow-minded state I'm currently in. Now, I wish I rejected the job and never truly went to that wedding, but I guess that wish could only come true if wishes were horses, and unfortunately they are not. When I first got the gig, I spoke to my husband about it because I always took his permission before traveling for my job. He also takes permission from me before traveling for work-related activities. Forgive me for using the term gig. I think I'm old school and have the tendency to call things in a weird manner. Don't judge me, lol. When I spoke to Dane about it, he didn't have a problem. It was normal for me to travel for work, and he never complained. I think the reason he's always chilled about it is because he also travels for work on several occasions. Maybe he feels guilty and just decides that it's best if we have a mutual understanding. To be honest, neither Dane or I are home regularly, guys. Our schedules collide a lot, and that makes it hard for us to stay home together. You see the reason we decided to pause on having kids, right? If we had kids now, we'd be the world's worst parents ever. Except we hire a nanny, of course. Where was I? Oh, yeah. Dane gave me permission to go to Chicago for my work. He also told me that he'd be traveling for work too. So, we both left the house yet again. When I landed in Chicago, it was a lot of work that awaited me. As a choreographer, I think one of my hardest challenges is managing choreography for weddings. It's the worst type of workload to ever have, but I have no choice but to indulge in it because I need to earn that money. My job was to teach the couple and their bridesmaids, groomsmen, some extra choreography that they could use for a perfect wedding entrance. They wanted something like those trendy couple entrances online. It's very hard to teach dance to couples who know nothing about dance or rhythm. It was very difficult for me, and by the time I flew there, I had just 2 weeks to make sure everyone was good in their respective distinctions. I almost gave up at the end of the day because none of them were cooperating as much as I wanted them to. I'm not joking when I say that I almost had a mental breakdown. Yeah, things like that are not foreign to my job, and anytime it happens, I like to call my husband and have a long talk with him. I did that almost throughout that particular trip, but I had to stop the moment Dane told me he had been occupied and had to work. I don't know what suddenly came into me or why I agreed to attend that particular bachelor's party. I'd never attended most of the bachelor's parties I'd been invited to while at work. The rare cases where I attended those parties were either because the couples were relatives or close friends of mine. That particular couple were just friends of mine that I met in college. When they invited me to their bachelor's party, I said no instantly. I didn't even ask for room to think about it. I just knew immediately that it was not something I wanted to do. One of my reasons for initially declining my request is because I had been exhausted from all the dancing and teaching I did. But the couple didn't take my no for an answer at all. They kept pestering me and asking me to come. Now I wish that I had held my ground and stuck to the no I said to them when they first asked. I'm sure that if I had just held on a little bit, things would have turned out differently. When I went to the bachelor's party, I realized that it was not the normal kind of bachelors. The couple did not have their bachelor's party separately. Instead, they did it together. It was really wild, and easily I stepped into the club. I knew that I should have really stayed home and not honored the invitation. There were drinks all over the place and people dancing like there was no tomorrow. I think any of you reading this who has been to a bachelor's party before would understand what I am talking about. It's crazy how couples just decide to celebrate in such a wild manner. This particular couple left no stone unturned, and they made sure that they went as wild as they possibly could. I felt so out of place that I did not think twice before asking to leave. The only problem was that I had arrived in the couple's car, and they were the ones who brought me to the club. I was not really familiar with Chicago that much, because I had not been there many times before. I wanted to go and ask the couples if they could call a taxi for me and tell the taxi exactly where to drop me off. But after thinking about it, I refused to do that because I thought it would be inconsiderate for me to go to stop the couple when they were having fun. I also didn't want to be a burden because I did not want to find myself in an uncomfortable situation. It did not help that I was really scared of the taxi driver taking me to an unknown location, and I would not even realize because I was not that familiar with Chicago. I'm one of those women that are big overthinkers and read into every single detail. I can become paranoid over the most trivial things, and I would give you the same reasons why I am right. I decided to just stay at the party and try my best to hold on till the couple were ready to be. I knew that it was not going to be early because the couple did not look like they planned on leaving the party that early. I just walked around and tasted the food that they had on display. I never want to miss a chance to eat good food. While I was walking around and eating anything in sight, a guy waved at me and gestured for me to come sit with him. I know that many of you will just call that the most cheesy thing you've ever heard, and to be honest, I was quite surprised that any guy had the courage to wave at me. I was so stupid that I thought I had a cardboard on my head that said married, and so I never really expected any guy to call out to me. But I was wrong, and the fact that I was married was not visible to everyone. I don't have a wedding ring if that's what you're thinking. It didn't even last 6 months before I lost it somewhere. My husband also misplaced his too, and I'm sure we are not the only couple who could not keep their wedding rings. Our job is very demanding and rough, and we understood that there was no way we could keep something as small as a ring. The first few weeks after my wedding, I had to struggle to keep it on while dancing. Sometimes it would slip off my fingers, and other times it would get stuck on my fingers. When I used to misplace it, I will try my best and look for it. But as time went on, I stopped trying, and I finally lost it because I knew that I would still be placed at the end of the day. My husband lost it while he was waiting in line with some of his colleagues to get an important interview. The struggle journalists go through just to be the one to take the interview and shove their mic into the face of the person they want to interview is wild. My husband always tells me about it, and it's a thing I'm always fascinated about. I'm sorry to deviate. I just wanted to make you guys understand that I did not intentionally lose my wedding ring, and I did not drop it off at the hotel intentionally. When the guy called me and gestured for me to come sit with him, I tried to pretend like I did not see him calling out to me. I just assumed that he was drunk, and he would eventually go away when he was tired. But at the end of the day, I was actually wrong, and he did not go away. He walked up to me and was smiling from ear to ear. I'm not even joking, guys. I'm telling the truth. I honestly believed that he was drunk, but I later discovered that he was not drunk at all. Instead of leaving like I thought he would, he introduced himself. I'm not going to say his real name because I don't want to reveal his identity too. I'll just refer to him as Brandon. He asked me for my name and I told him my name. I'm not going to lie. I actually found Brandon attractive when he walked up to me. I could obviously see back then that he had extremely white teeth that looked like those ones they bought with a lot of money. He had a diamond earring on one of his ears. It looked like a diamond earring. I'm not sure if it's fake or not. I think he's like one of those guys that look like they put a lot of money into their outfit and all. I did not understand why he was suddenly interested in talking to me, but I did not push him away. Before Brandon came to talk to me, I already had 1 or 2 drinks, so I was quite tipsy and jovial. I don't even know what the bartender mixed for me, and I drank. It looked good, and I just had a taste of it, but I could tell immediately after taking it that it was something strong. Brandon just started off by talking to me, and we spoke about random things. He asked me if I was related to the couple, and I said I was their choreographer. I also asked him what relationship he had with the couple, and he told me that he was a distant cousin of the groom. We went from having conversation to casually laughing, and I honestly don't even remember what we were laughing about. The party had gotten wilder, and people were dancing and puking and drinking and doing several things in the club. I'd never imagined that a bachelor party could go so crazy, and I even saw the couple doing several crazy things with other people. I was caught off guard when Brandon pulled me onto the dance floor. I'm not trying to play the victim card by saying that he just pulled me onto the dance floor. I was very aware of it, but I did not try to fight him. I let him drag me to the dance floor, and I felt really lightheaded. I know that I was not drunk and that I was somewhere between being conscious and being tipsy. The music and environment played a role, and I just went with the flow. I don't know if it was Brandon's expensive look and confidence, but I just know that I had been drawn to him at that moment. We danced, and we even had drinks together, and that was it, before things got wild. It first started from a kiss, and I don't know how it got crazy. I'm being honest when I say that I did not plan for it to get that far. But I would also be lying if I say that I did not indulge him in any way. For everything he did, I know that I gave him the courage to continue doing it. I felt, and I still feel like I am a very loose woman, because I encouraged Brandon in so many ways. I woke up the next morning in an unknown location, and Brandon was right next to me. That's when it all made sense to me. I spent the night with Brandon, a total stranger that I didn't even know from anywhere. I practically ran out of the hotel room because I was very ashamed of myself. I could not believe that I had cheated on my husband with a total stranger. The fact that I did not know Brandon before made it more disrespectful and crazy. Before leaving the hotel, Brandon gave me his business card, which contained all his information. He told me that he liked the night we spent together and would like to see me again. I only agreed to take the business card after he showed me the protection he had used because I was very scared that he did not use protection. It was on that business card that I discovered that Brandon was an athlete, and I even had to look him up online. He was a young athlete in his mid-20s, and I could not believe that I had slept with somebody that was 6 years younger than me. It felt surreal, and I honestly believed that something had gotten into me. But I knew that wasn't the truth. Prior to the bachelor's party, I'd been counting down the days till I left Chicago. But immediately after that party, I've been praying that time would stop till I was able to gather enough courage to see my husband. Well, time stops for no one, and I did not suddenly become an exception. I don't know how to say this, but I met with the consequences of my actions. I've started feeling the weight of what I did even without revealing the truth to my husband. The guilt slaps harder than anything I've ever experienced, and it's honestly crazy. I thought it was the couples who usually ended bachelor parties in crazy decisions, but I ended up being the one with the crazy decision. An athlete? Seriously? I cheated on my husband with a young athlete? I'm honestly very disgusted in myself. I wasn't even present on the wedding day, and I didn't take much videos like I usually did. I just hid into my shell and tried my best to pretend like everything was okay, when though I was firmly sure that nothing was okay. The wedding ended 1 week ago, but I'm still in Chicago. I don't have the courage to leave Chicago right now. My husband has been blowing up my phone consistently for the past few days, but I have intentionally ignored all his calls. I can't do it. How will I tell him? I have no choice than to go back tomorrow. Please help me, guys. I don't know what to do. I will be very honest. The truth is that I don't want him to find out. I still love him and I regret my decision. But I can't imagine losing him for anything in this world. I messed up big time, but I'm not ready to give up on him. I feel like a selfish fool and I know I am, but help me here. Update. I got caught, guys. Dane found out the truth on his own. I thought time would take my troubles away, but I guess that time only made it worse. They say time heals wounds, but it just made my own wound bigger. The funny thing is that the wound is not even mine in the first place. I'm the one who went ahead and ruined my marriage with my act of irresponsibility and stupidity. I had to finally leave Chicago because I could not stay there forever, at the end of the day, even though I wanted to. It took a lot of personal affirmation for me to finally go back to my house. I spent a lot of money renting a hotel in Chicago, and I think it was one of the things that gave me a reality check and said, I needed to go back. When I got back, I was very happy that my husband was not at home. I checked the many messages he sent me, but I did not reply. I couldn't even bring myself to open the messages for days, but I was finally able to check the messages when I got back to the house. He said in one of his messages that he was going on another work trip. He already left for the work trip a day before I got back. I felt relieved to know that I would not have to face him immediately, and that I would have some time to gather my thoughts and think of what to do. I was practically left in a state of denial because I didn't want to come into the present and accept what I have done. I kept trying to draw it out and pretend it was all a dream, but I realized that I was not helping myself and that I was only making matters worse. I read most of the comments you all dropped, but I think I stopped halfway when I realized that the comments were doing me more good and bad. A lot of people said a lot of hurtful things to me, and I can swear that it got to me. What is worse is the fact that I know that I deserved all of the insults and judgment I got. This is the first time I have ever shared my story on Reddit and made myself vulnerable to public scrutiny and judgment. And I do honestly hope that this will be the last time I will share a story on Reddit too. You guys remember that I told you my husband kept calling me continuously, but I ignored him. He left a lot of voice notes, and I was finally able to listen to them when I gathered my thoughts. In most of the voice notes, he sounded very angry, and he kept on saying that I was being very mysterious for not answering his calls and ignoring his text. The last voice note sent was the one that showed me just how angry he was. He sounded very furious, and he even told me that he would travel to Chicago if I did not call him back. I just assumed that it was a threat and that he would not follow through with it. By the time I even listened to that voice note, I was already out of Chicago. Thankfully, he also said he went for work, so he was not able to follow through with his threat. I finally decided to tell my husband the truth after most of the comments I read on Reddit. The comments made me understand that keeping the truth from my husband would only make me more of a selfish, lying woman, and that I made the decision and I should be ready to dance to the tunes of the music I played. I'm not going to come here and lie like I decided to tell the truth, just because many people said that I should tell the truth. It took a lot of convincing myself and seeing the truth from other people's perspective for me to actually decide to tell him the truth. I finally realized that I had been selfish to think that it was okay to cheat on my husband and then decide to keep the truth from him. Just like most people called me in the comments, I think I am actually an entitled woman, and it is very wrong. It's one thing to cheat, and it's another thing to try to keep the truth. When all this is over and the truth is finally revealed, I don't want him to finally end up hating me. One of the reasons I also finally decided to tell him the truth is because the athlete kept on messaging me. Apparently, he had gotten my phone number from the groom, who was his distant cousin. When I asked him how he was able to get the phone number, he said he lied to the groom and said he wanted to hire me for an event. I blocked him immediately after I found out how he got my number, but he kept messaging me with different numbers. I had to switch off my phone completely and start using another phone with a separate SIM because I was tired of receiving his calls. Every moment he tested me or tried to reach out to me just made me relieve the horrible thing I had done. He was like a bad glue that was stuck to me. At some point after I switched my phone back on, I noticed that he stopped texting and calling me. After I noticed that I finally deleted all the call logs and text messages he sent to me, that was how I was finally able to start using my SIM again. My husband only spent 1 week on his work trip before he finally got back. When he came back immediately, he asked me to sit down and have an important conversation with him. I'd been very shocked and scared, and I honestly believed that he had found out the truth. But ultimately, I discovered I was wrong because the conversation did not go the way I expected it to go. He was very angry, and he kept asking me why I suddenly decided to act the way I acted in Chicago. It was the perfect opportunity for me to tell him the truth and what happened, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it at that moment. I apologized to him and said that I was sick in Chicago. He didn't believe me at all and suggested that I had been up to something, and that was why I intentionally ignored him. He was so angry that he did not speak to me for the whole day since he got back. That day, I ran to the toilet and cried my eyes out. I kept asking myself that if he was angry at me for just ghosting him for a week, then how would he feel when he found out what I had done? It made me realize that I might have underestimated the gravity of what I had done. I got to understand that there was no way he was going to forgive me, and I slowly began to accept that. Even though I had been preparing to tell him the truth, I was still not fully prepared for when he found out. I never even expected him to find out on his own, and I can tell you all that I was not prepared at all. The level of shock and anxiety that hit me the moment he confronted me was nerve, actually. I have not been prepared, and it was that scenario that made me regret not telling him sooner. It was a Saturday morning, and both of us were at home for the first time in a very long time. My husband had still been very angry with me, and we were not in talking terms for a very long time. I made lunch for us, and I served him in the living room because he was watching TV. I did not expect him to suddenly push the food down till the plate shattered on the floor. The hot food almost burnt my skin, and I almost stepped on the shattered plate because of how shocked I had been. I got upset with him and asked him why he was acting like a child. Imagine me foolishly trying to think that I could scold him, not knowing that I was about to receive the shock of my life. To my surprise, he brought out his phone, increased his brightness, and then shoved the phone into my hands. When I squinted my eyes to see what he was trying to show me, my breath almost left me instantly. There were snaps of the text messages Brandon had sent to me. From the date, I could see that there were recent messages. I could not even believe that Dane was able to snap the texts that I didn't even know existed when I didn't even see them myself. I didn't even realize that I had underestimated just how smart my husband was. He was a journalist, and I had forgotten about that while I was caught up in my own personal problems. The messages were so recent that I was very sure that there were not the same messages I had deleted. I realized that he had searched my phone without me even knowing it, and that was where he took the pictures, the text from. One of the messages consisted of these words: "I can't forget that night even though I've tried. Please stop ignoring me so I can see you again." Those were the disgusting messages he sent to me, and I can't even write them all. I'm so embarrassed that my own husband read all those messages. I forgot all about Brandon because he has stopped sending me messages for some time. I didn't bother checking again, and I was so caught up with trying to figure out how to tell my husband the truth that I did not even think of trying to hide the texts. I didn't even know that any such text existed at all. I was so surprised that I could not move, and I just stared at the phone like it was the only thing that could save me from the situation I had found myself, or rather than the situation I had brought upon myself. Dane shook his head while he was looking at me and spat on the floor. He told me that I took his trust and shoved it out of the window. He said it was because of women like me that men could not trust their wives. He also told me that he regretted ever giving me the freedom to work as I liked. He said so many things that I had to cover my ear and stop myself from hearing them all. The more I listened to him, the more I realized that I had messed up so badly, and the man that once adored me was now disgusted by everything that related to me. His words cut so deep that I was immensely embarrassed. He told me that he was even more disappointed that I chose to keep it from him for so many days and even up to 3 weeks. I tried to explain, even though I was stuttering and nothing sensible came out of my mouth. He didn't give me a chance to speak, and he just grabbed his car keys and left the house. I spent hours on the floor thinking about what happened and pinching myself so I could wake up and realize it has all been a dream. I had ruined my life for a few minutes with a stranger, and I had suffered it, and I am still suffering it in more ways than I could have ever imagined. I could not believe that just like that, my marriage was over, and it was all because of my decisions. Every day since that day has been the most miserable day of my life. I cannot even imagine what is going through his head. I know he despises me now, and the thought of that is making me go crazy. The thought that your husband, who once loved you and showered you with so much affection, now gets disgusted and ignores all your calls is very dreadful. I, for one, am still very shocked still. And even as I write this, I'm trying my best to get out of bed and leave the house because I have been stuck in the house for days. The only text message I got from Dane was that he was planning to get a divorce. He just warned me to sign the divorce papers immediately when it came and not try to make a scene, or else he would make sure I get humiliated. I don't underestimate his ability to keep to his words, and that is why I am not going to try to act out or hinder the divorce process. I also have a conscience, and I'll be evil if I try to make this divorce hard for him. Update 2. I'm now a divorcee. Wow, life has to be the most unpredictable thing human beings would ever face. The fact that a woman like me, who was married just 4 months ago and is now divorced in a very short time span, is crazy. Life has a way of humbling you in so many ways that you don't even know where to start from. I got karma, and it was very hard. Dane didn't even have to lift a finger before I regretted all my decisions all over again. In case you're wondering what has been happening for the past 4 months, I'll gladly tell you all because I've been itching to make this post. Just like I said I would, I signed the divorce papers without causing any drama because I knew that there was no need for me to do that. I knew that there was no use dragging it out and trying to play smart when I would end up being the fool at the end of the day. We were living in a rented apartment and did not have our own house, so there was no fight over property and all that stuff. I am also very thankful that we held out and did not have kids yet, or else it would have been very brutal if I had to be separated from my kids. I moved out of the apartment because I could not afford to pay for the apartment on my own, even though Dane decided he wanted to leave. I moved back to my aunt's house because I was living there before I got married. She's the one who has been a mother figure to me, and I can't tell you all she was not mad at me. The neighbors and every single person we knew were spreading rumors and giving their own calculated version of what happened. I never cared to modify anything that has been said about me because I just don't see the point. Even though some people are exaggerating and adding a little bit too much salt, I know they are not lying, and I brought it upon myself. If I have stayed faithful to my husband and not looked elsewhere, I would not have a reason to be embarrassed and become a laughingstock. Some people even call me damaged goods when they think I am not looking. But none of them got to me like the realization of what I'd done. I regret it every single day, and I don't know if the stigma would ever go away. I don't think any man can even come to the neighborhood without knowing the full stories because everyone seems to be talking about it. My aunt keeps reminding me that the rumors might never let me get married. It's been 4 months now, and I have said that I made a mistake and I'm over it. I've pitied myself long enough, and I've realized that regretting things and spending days remembering everything will not make or change anything. Dane has moved on with his life, and I deserve to move on with my life too. I have a career to get back to, and I need to start accepting the gigs that have been coming my way. I've learned my lesson, and it has taught me a lot, but that doesn't mean I should keep dwelling on the past. I've told my aunt that I only plan on staying with her for 2 more months before I move to New York. I have enough money saved up to open a dance studio and an office so that I can easily receive my clients. I've blocked all the background noises, and even when my aunt and other family members try to tell me what my ex-husband is up to and what is going on in his life, I always tell them I am not interested because I do not plan on reliving all those memories again. Well, that's all, guys. I'm just trying to get a place in New York before I move there. Brandon stopped contacting me 2 months before the divorce was finalized, and I have had my peace since then. I sincerely hope that no one makes the kind of bad decisions I've made, and women should just try their best to be more present and think about the consequences of their actions before they indulge any male gender. Also, remember to stay safe at bachelor parties, lol. Shalom, peace. My husband has been ignoring me consistently, and I'm tired of it. What kind of man thinks it's okay to marry a wife, then act like you don't know her? He doesn't give me attention at all, and it's honestly making me very angry. I'm tired of fighting for my husband's attention and trying to make him finally pay attention to me. I don't think that's the normal way to live at all, and it's so annoying. I practically ran here to Reddit today because I'm tired of acting like a pick-me-up girl with my own husband. I thought marriages were supposed to take the effort of both partners. Why am I the one putting in 90% effort while my husband just lays back and ignores me? I literally fight for his attention every single day. It's hard living that kind of life, and it's the most mentally draining thing ever. I'm slowly making up my mind to do something that's going to have consequences. He's pushing me, and I know that when I make that decision, none of us will ever recover from it. My name is Tiana, and I'm a 29-year-old woman from Washington, D.C. I've been married to my husband Spencer for the past 1 year and a half. He's 30 years old, and I thought he was the best thing that happened to me for a very long time. Spencer and I dated for 2 years before we got married to each other. We met at the fundraiser for an event, and that was how we just started off as friends. I liked his personality a lot, and I liked the fact that he was a very jovial person. I'm also a very jovial person who is very interested in social activities, and that is why I was drawn to him. Our relationship was really okay, and we had the best time together. That's why we started taking things seriously, and then Heck proposed. I think the problem started from the first week of our marriage. The problem started that early, and it has taken a lot of patience for me to endure everything. Let me just put it this way, without me mincing any words. My husband is a family man, and he is very close to his family. Normally, that is not supposed to be a problem, but in my situation, it is a very big problem. I don't think marrying a family man is really the best decision I made, and I am still regretting it to this day. I get that he was close to his family before he met me, and it is supposed to be that way, but there are certain boundaries you have to draw once you get married. You don't just suddenly decide to get married and then you make your wife feel like she has to scramble and fight for your attention. It's not a competition, and even though it was, your wife is not supposed to be involved in any competition for your attention at all. I'm honestly sick and tired of the unnecessary jabs his family throws at me just because they feel like he is closer to them than me. I get that they were with him for years before he met me, but hold on. Isn't the wife supposed to be the first priority of her husband in the marriage? I don't get why that should ever be a question, or why his family members should come to our house and stay over for weeks. I am not even exaggerating when I say that they come to our house and stay over for as long as they want. My husband owns a very big house, and he lived in the house even before he met him. There are many rooms, and I can even tell that the house was initially supposed to be a family house. I don't know why a single man would have that many rooms. When I asked him, he just told me that he made the house big enough so that his family members can come and sleep over anytime. At first, I didn't see it as a big deal because I thought it was normal for family members to come visit once in a while. But that is it. Family members are only to come and visit once in a while. I don't get why they are coming to visit literally every 2 months and then they stay for almost a month. You guys need to see how I am typing on this keyboard with a lot of anger. I am practically fuming and pressing the keys furiously, because it just doesn't make sense that my husband would let his sisters stay at our own house for almost 1 month. I mean, if they just stayed and didn't cause any trouble, I would not have a problem with it, but oh no. Have I told you guys about his sisters? They act like they are coming to seek their boyfriend, and they have every right to litter the house. There was even a time when one of his sisters brought her boyfriend to come visit. They have no respect for me, and they have no regard. I come from a very respectful family, and in our family, it is very important that boundaries are drawn. My parents even feel bad to stay the night when they visit. I beg them to come over sometimes, but they want to respect boundaries. I'm not trying to say he should not be close to his family members, but please, let the boundaries and lines stay drawn. I don't get why his sisters act like they are the ones married to my own husband. Let me also talk about how my husband completely ignores me when they are around. It's not like I'm exaggerating or saying he doesn't speak to me. He speaks to me, but the problem is that he doesn't act like we're a normal couple in front of his family. When they are gone, I get back his full attention, but he barely acknowledges me in front of them. I can't make jokes or even miss my husband in our own home, as far as his siblings are watching, or his mother is in the living room. They smile and act like they like me in his presence, but when he's not around, it's a different story. I've had to endure all these for 1.5 years, and I'm tired. He's not home as much as I am, so he doesn't understand anything I'm going through. I also have my work, but when they are around, I find it hard to go to work and leave my house to them. They touch everything they see. And I've tried talking to my husband about it, but it seems like me bringing up the topic just annoys him. He brushed it off, then asked me a very stupid question like, "Don't you like my family?" A yes or no question. What am I supposed to say? No? It's almost like he's suppressing me. So that's why I've decided to take a step back and continuously think of what I'm going to do. I have decided to share my story on Reddit and get proper advice because I've seen how other people come here to ask for advice. I'm not ready to just sit back and let him and his family trample over me. I met a man, and I want him to act like my husband. If he's not ready to do that, then I might look elsewhere. I don't care what he says or thinks, but it's not right to isolate your wife no matter the excuse you think you have for doing that. Update. I cheated on my husband. I did it, and I know you all warned me, but guess what? It's been a lot of red flags from Spencer. I am currently on a trip right now, and you guys would not believe what is going on now. I decided to have some time alone with my husband so I could truly, fully decide where he stands and what he is actually up to. When I made my last update, many of you stated that I was being too fast in my judgment and thinking too fast. Some people also said that they fully supported whatever I had to do because they could relate to my situation one way or another. To be sincere, I'm still glad that many people decided to read my story and give their various opinions. I never expected Spencer to turn out this way at all. He's almost acting like someone entirely different. I don't want to be married to someone I don't know and someone who is playing hard to get. Most people are trying to make this about me and act like I am the one being difficult. I got a lot of people asking me if I don't have any conscience for even thinking about cheating on my husband. I don't think those people understand that it is always the person who wears the shoe that goes through the problems. I'm not ready to be that person that lets anyone trample all over her. Even after what you all said, and I did not agree with most of the comments, I decided to give it a try and actually have some alone time with my husband. About 2 weeks ago, I told him that I would be planning a getaway for just the two of us. I told him 1 week ahead of time so he would have enough time to plan whatever he wanted to do. Spencer agreed, and he told me that he would have enough time to go on the trip with me. It was the first time since many years after our marriage that we got time together. I didn't actually expect him to say yes at first, so when he said yes, I made a lot of plans to make sure that everything was perfect. I was actually daydreaming and thinking that I was finally going to get my husband back. And now that I think about it, I think it was very weird that I as a woman would need to be happy, just because I would have a little bit of time with my husband. It's supposed to be a normal thing, and there's no need for me to be so excited. But the situation is different, and I am literally sharing my husband with the whole of his family, so it is quite difficult to get his attention. I prepared everything, and when it was 2 days to the trip, I started buying some things and bringing them to the house so that we would not need to waste a lot of time shopping on the road. During one of my shopping sprees, one of Spencer's sisters who was at the house noticed that I had been buying stuff and keeping it in our room. I didn't think it was a big deal, and I didn't think I had any reason to hide any of what I was buying for my own house from them. But she went to go talk to the rest of her siblings after figuring out that we were going on a trip, and some hours before our trip 2 days later, they showed up at the house. Spencer was not at home by that time because he went to get something last minute. His mother actually walked up to me to ask me why I was making her son take decisions without consulting her. I am not even trying to mince words here, Reddit. It's the absolute truth, and I was very surprised when I heard her say those words. I asked her what she meant by that, and she told me that I was making Spencer go on a trip without telling her first. It was at that moment that I realized that I got married to a mommy's boy. Why would his mother feel it was okay for her to ask me why we were going on a business trip without telling her first? What difference does it make, and how is it any of her business? I didn't even know what to say to her because I did not want to end up disrespecting her. I just waited for Spencer to come back and take care of the situation. When Spencer came back, she spoke to him much more nicely than she spoke to me. It was like she was trying to poke me behind him and then get a reaction out of me in front of him. I have heard a lot about evil mother-in-laws, but I never thought I would end up in a similar situation. Her audacity was just too much. She didn't even directly tell Spencer she was upset. She just beat around the bush continuously, and then that was all. Spencer and I ended up going to the airport almost 30 minutes late because his mother had to say unnecessary things and give unnecessary advice. I didn't let her negative energy stop me from trying to put effort into the trip. I tried my best to keep a positive attitude and not soil the mood because of his mother. Spencer was like a different man after we got to the hotel. He was back to acting like the man I used to know. I was very happy to have him back, and I honestly wanted to update you all immediately. I wanted to let Reddit know that their advice worked, and he was finally talking to me again. I was like a girl in a toy shop. I don't really know how the story goes, so let's leave it that way, lol. During the trip, we went to several places and did a lot of fun things. We're still at the hotel, and we're only to leave in 1 week's time. Everything started out great, to be honest, and I had nothing to fault. It felt like a breath of fresh air to be away from Spencer's family for that long. Because I wanted to save marriage and have a clean conscience, I decided to have another conversation with Spencer. Listen, my husband is great when he is not around his family. He's the definition of sweet, and he's the husband I knew before getting married. But once he's in front of his family, he tries to put on this hard demeanor. I wanted to speak to him about that because it makes no sense for a man to do that to his wife. I get that some men want to make their family believe that they have a mind of their own and don't always listen to their wives. It's a normal thing among men, and I know this because I've heard many stories about it and have even seen some evidence before. I decided to have a conversation with Spencer, and I planned on clearing up everything. I told him about my displeasure with his family coming over almost every day. Spencer was really shocked when I said that, and he did not even try to hide his displeasure. I couldn't understand why he had to pick up a fight with me, just because I was not happy with his family. I didn't even try to sugarcoat anything, and I told him that his sisters were getting on my nerves. I don't know if it was his male ego trying to take over or just his love for his family, but he was not even ready to listen to me. He kept putting words in my mouth and trying to make it seem like I was the one being difficult. Just like he always did, he tried to use those yes or no questions to discourage me. But I was not ready to be discouraged, and I made sure that I did not stutter when I told him that I did not plan on sharing him with his family. It was a very complicated conversation, and I even began to regret taking up the conversation in the first place. At some point, I got up and tried to walk out, and that was when Spencer asked me to just sit and listen to me. He began to say things like he was sorry for inconveniencing me, and that he was just a man who was very close to his family. So I tried to make him understand that I did not have a problem with him being close to his family, and that I just had a problem with his family, trying their best to come in between me and him. I don't know why he finds it hard to understand such simple things, and why he always tries to guilt-trip me and make me feel like I was bringing up unnecessary problems. It was almost like every single time I brought up a conversation, the same pattern always happened, and we ended up going nowhere in the conversation. I never realized that I would have to choose my words before speaking to my own husband. Even though the memory of everything that happened sickens me and makes me very angry, I'm just super happy that I made sure I left no stone unturned and tried my best. At least I would have enough evidence to show to anyone that dared and tried to judge me. When Spencer noticed that I was very angry and did not really want to continue the conversation, he decided to try his best and calm me down by making up excuses. He asked me to tell him exactly what his family did that continued to piss me up. I did not blame him for asking me that because I was very well aware that his family never showed their other side in his presence. They always reserved their shady side for me and treated me in a cold way when he was around. That had been the pattern for a long time, and I wanted to be a virtuous wife and just keep quiet and endure like every other woman did. But I discovered that the more I tried to make peace and just ignore any arguments, the more they tried to poke me and get a reaction out of me. If not even my own parents felt comfortable coming to my house and discomforting us. I don't get why his family should think that the house was their second home. I was so serious that I spoke to Spencer in such a harsh tone that he had to understand that I was not joking. He apologized immediately and told me that was just being protective of his family. I told him that didn't make sense and that I was supposed to be his first priority when it came to being protective. I made sure he understood that I was also someone's family, and they transferred all their responsibility to him. I made him understand that he had to step up. Spencer did not like my time because I was speaking very harshly, and I don't deny that. I had to calm down because I was really upset. He told me he understood what I was saying, and that even though I'd been overacting, he was going to try his best to make sure his family drew some boundaries. His words calmed me down a lot, and I finally told him that all I'd wanted was for him to see things from my own point of view. It's that simple, right? I also told him that I hated the fact that I have to practically plead for his attention. He tried to deny that being true, but I gave him so many instances that he had to accept my claims. That's pretty much how the conversation ended, and for the first time ever, I'd believed that we made progress in our couple conversations. It was the first time that happened in a very long time, and I didn't take it for granted at all. So it's surprising for me to realize that everything I said to my husband literally entered one ear and left through the next. He has decided to do exactly what I asked him not to do. I've tried my best, and at this point I'm honestly done. I no longer have a conscience because it's outrageous at this point. No one has a right to blame me at all. What kind of situation have I found myself in? I came on this trip and planned it because I needed time together with Spencer. But right now, it seems like Spencer is not interested in having the same time alone with me. If you all are wondering why I'm being this angry, I'll be more than glad to let you all know the messed up things Spencer did recently that just drove me over the edge. We went to the beach together, and I put on my brand new bikini. That was just barely 2 days after we had the very important conversation. I thought I'd spoken some sense into Spencer, and he was going to listen to me and try to do his best in our marriage. He seemed to comply, but he decided to do something crazy at the beach. I had my bikini on, and I even put on my sunscreen and everything. LOL. It's a big deal because I hardly ever try to do all those things because I don't have time to go to beaches. But I had to put in an effort because I wanted to get back to the way Spencer and I had a fun marriage and relationship. We had drinks, and we even had some tacos that I'd made earlier that day. It was supposed to be a fun day with a lot of minimal stress and barely any work. We agreed to switch off our phones and just focus on ourselves because we really needed that kind of vibe. I didn't think twice before switching off my phone because I didn't think anything was more important than bonding with my husband. I ain't even lying to you guys. I tried to make some flirty moves and just act crazy with him. He's my husband after all. So I didn't feel shy or embarrassed at all. Like I said, I've always been a jovial person, and I'm the type to do entertaining things and just have fun in every situation no matter what. That was just me being me. But Spencer decided to break the deal. He didn't switch off his phone after telling me that he did. He lied. Okay, if it has been a work calm that pooped up, if not, have a problem with it. He has a right to work, and his work earns him money. They were even kind enough to grant his sudden leave request. But I think the reason is because he hardly requests any leave from work at all. But in that situation, it was not a work call at all. It was a personal call, and can you guys get who it was from? His mother. Yes, his mother called him while we were busy on a getaway trip. I mean, the whole point of a getaway trip is to drop all the stress behind and just loosen up. I don't care what anyone says. I'm really calling his mother stress, because that woman has stressed me out in too many ways. When Spencer picked up the call and I found out it was his mother that called. I was very pissed off, but I tried my best to contain my anger. I didn't want to end up being that woman that just couldn't control herself. I wanted to listen to what she had to say first in case she had any important thing to discuss with him. There was nothing important at all. She just called because a close relative of theirs was in the same city we were in, and she needed Spencer to pick that person up and lodge a hotel for that person. I thought I was hearing things and that Spencer was just trying to pull my leg, but no, his mother really requested that of him. What kind of a woman requests that from her son when she knows fully well that he is busy with his wife? It was a very dumb request, and it made no sense because she knew that we had gone on a trip together. If we hadn't been on a trip, where would that relative go? The coincidence was just too much, and something told me that they had planned it. Why else would a relative suddenly visit the same city we were in? Even if it was purely coincidental and it was not planned, what business do we have with the relative that came to the city? Couldn't the relative find their way and do something on their own? Why travel to a city you know nothing about and then expect someone to come and babysit you and carry you around? At first, I was very pissed, and I tried to laugh off the anger I felt with Spencer. I tried to make up jokes and pretend like I was not really angry. That was because I didn't really expect Spencer to get up and tell me that he was going to pick up the relative. When he said that to me, it was honestly like he was from another planet and was trying to deceive me. But first, I was actually serious. and he grabbed his wallet and started preparing to leave. The man I married wanted to ditch me for a relative. It was not the best situation to be in, and I watched him like a hawk watching its prey. Why would Spencer think it was okay to just decide to leave me at a beach and try to go and make a relative comfortable? Even after all the conversations I had with him about me not liking the fact that I was sharing my husband with his family members, he still did the exact same thing I told him I did not like. I actually waited at that pool thinking that Spencer would run back and tell me he was just joking. That's just how confused and surprised I had been. Apart from being in a state of shock, I was actually very embarrassed. I started asking myself questions that I never thought I'd ask myself. I had to ask myself if my husband found some relative I didn't even know more important than me, his own wife. I did not like that at all, and it took me several minutes to get my thoughts together and decide the next step. I was so embarrassed because some people at the beach saw how he practically stood up and walked away, and I had been calling after him, but he didn't look back once. It had to be one of the most embarrassing moments of my life. It was a very weird kind of situation because I realized that I was not a priority to Spencer at all. It just meant that I did not matter to him, and he did not give me attention. He wanted me to beg for his attention and have to wait in line. I was not ready to live that kind of life and be that kind of person. I can't even describe how angry I had been that day. I was very upset, and I think I was even fuming. I did not bother parking the drinks and food we got. I just grabbed my purse and stormed out of the beach. Even though I knew people were looking at me because of the way I was grumbling, I did not care to look back because I knew that it was not going to get me anywhere. I went back to the hotel room and waited for Spencer for over 3 hours. Yet, he did not come out. I got tired of waiting, and I was also very angry. I got dressed and left the hotel room that same night. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to make sure I upsetted Spencer in a very harsh way. I did not underestimate my abilities to do exactly what I set my mind to, and in less than 4 hours of staying out and about, I had a one-night stand with a random guy. He wasn't really random because I recognized him as someone that went to the same college I went to. He was the one that worked up to me and asked me if I still remembered him. I did remember him, and that's how we started a conversation, and then it happened. I did not feel guilty at all when I woke up the next morning. My anger did not let me feel any guilt, and even now, as I write this, I don't feel any guilt at all. If a person, and especially a wife, has to constantly demand her husband's attention and respect, there is nothing to feel guilty about when she decides to look elsewhere. I'm also a human being, and I have feelings that can be hurt too. I don't think it's right at all for Spencer to ditch his own wife. Well, Spencer ditched me, and I ditched him too, so it was a two-way thing. No, I'm not sorry for doing that to Spencer, and if I have my way, I would honestly do it again. I don't think Spencer even knows or even cares. He's too busy trying to be the perfect son and staying under his family's control. I don't need that for my life, and I've tried to be that virtuous, kind woman for 1.5 years, and it has gotten me nowhere. The more I tolerated, the more disrespect I got. It was like a circle that kept on repeating itself, and Spencer didn't care less. So let me tell you guys what happened after I left the guy's house. I don't want to reveal his name because it's really nothing serious, and it was just a one-night stand. When I got back to the hotel room that day, I met Spencer at the hotel. He looked very angry, and then he asked me where I had been all night. I ignored him all throughout his rants, and I just went to freshen up in the toilet. Spencer got so angry that he came to stand in my way. I tried ignoring him because I did not want to have any conversation that would make me say hurtful things to him. I knew that our marriage was literally over, and there was no saving it at all. I didn't even want to save a marriage that never had any form of respect for me. Maybe that's why I don't regret cheating on him. I realized that I also deserve to be happy, and that I don't want to spend my life chasing after someone that doesn't respect me. Marriage is not supposed to consist of one partner looking for attention and another partner trying to frustrate that partner. Spencer did not let me rest, and he made sure that we had an argument. I tried my best to avoid the argument, but since he made sure that I had no space to think, I engaged in a very heated argument with him. I made him understand that he was very stupid if he thought it was okay for him to just leave me at the beach and then go wherever he wanted to. Our arguments mainly consisted of back and forth, and then he tried to accuse me of being reckless because I decided to leave the hotel without letting him know. Imagine a man that was not even at the hotel before I left, accusing me of being reckless. I said too many things to him that I am really happy that I finally said my mind. I also told him that I cheated on him because I am not sorry, and I do not want to hide it. I knew that the marriage was over, and I was not even interested in saving it in the first place. At first, Spencer did not believe it, and he thought that I was just lying and trying to play a prank on him, because I was still very angry he left me at the beach. I did not care whether he thought it was true or not. I did not laugh at his jokes, and I told him that I was very serious. When Spencer realized that I was not joking, he punched the wall, then left the hotel. It's been over 24 hours and Spencer has not come back. I've used the opportunity to update you guys, and I will give the last update when I get back to Washington, D.C. I have an early flight and I have to get to bed now. I have also moved to another hotel room and locked the door because I do not trust that Spencer would not try anything with me. I have packed my things and I'll be ready to go tomorrow. Update 2. So when I got back to Washington, D.C., Spencer was not yet back, and I used the opportunity to pack my things and move out of his house. His family was around because they had been staying at the house even while we were on the trip. They did not seem surprised to see me packing my things, and I imagined that they already knew what happened. Or it was either that they were happy to see me go. Either way, I didn't care, and I just packed my things. Before I left, I told them they could now have Spencer to themselves, and I asked them if they were happy that he was single. His mother just laughed in my face and told me that she had never liked me from the beginning, and she was glad that I was no longer with her son. I told her I was glad too, and I needed to throw a celebration for escaping a mommy's boy. After I left the house, I went back to my parents' house and explained everything to them. They did not support the fact that I cheated instead of just walking away, but they were glad that I was finally free from such a marriage. I filed for divorce immediately after that, and Spencer sent back the signed papers barely a few hours after I sent them to him. We only saw each other in court after that, but there was no altercation. I had nothing to say to him, and he had nothing to say to me. Our divorce was finalized 3.5 months ago, and I've gone back to my normal way of life. It's much better now, and I'm back to my jovial self. I'm not sorry for cheating on Spencer because that was my own way of paying him back for the way he treated me. I don't deserve to be desperate for my husband's attention, and I am finally glad that I got out of that marriage. If time turned back again, and I was left in the same position where I had to cheat on Spencer, I would do it in a heartbeat, just like he ditched me at the beach in the heartbeat. I'm super grateful to everyone that has always been and shared their thoughts. I don't think anyone would ever truly understand how hard this would have been without having people to talk to. Thank you so much for listening to me. Goodbye, you all.